Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
One rather concerning thing, Mr. Sidden used a video clip of Pastor Artur Pawlowski preaching about the Bible, and he seemed to use that story from the Bible as he was trying to indicate that that's proof that he knew about the order in the world. I don't know if Mr. Sidden quite understood that that was a Bible story, but we'll leave that aside for now.
When the authorities saw that Peter and John were filled with the Holy Spirit, unmoved by the corrupted government, when they saw the courage of Peter and John.
Hey Rebels, Adam here with an important update. We've been covering his story since the beginning. In fact, he was one of our very first Fight the Fines cases. I'm here with a quick update on court proceedings so far. Things are going very quickly, so I haven't had a chance to do an update. Court is ongoing now, but I'm just going to hop out for a minute to give you guys an update. So Justice Adam Germain is hearing this case. He's the same judge on the Pastor Stevens case. Jennifer Jackson is the lawyer acting for Alberta Health Services, and our incredible Sarah Miller from JSS Barristers is acting on defense for Pastor Art. Pastor Art is in court today for a hearing on contempt for allegedly breaching the order of Justice Gates, which allowed authorities to enter and interrupt worship in order to conduct inspections. So this does not pertain to the May 6th order, the arrest, anything surrounding David Pawlowski. There's some confusion initially. AHS seemed to think that everything would be discussed, but they've isolated it specifically to the contempt of the interruption of worship order from Justice Gates. So that's distinct from the May 6th order. So I know there's a lot of legal jargon there, but I think that's important. Miller stated that Pawlowski did not admit to contempt of Gates's order. So they're not denying that entry wasn't afforded, but they are stating that he wasn't given the opportunity to comply. So that contempt is not what's happening. So they're not denying that he rejected them access to the facility, but that instead he did not have the opportunity to comply with the order, as he was never given an opportunity to understand it. Jackson basically opened by going through her evidence for the order, the contempt allegation for the April 23rd order. They stipulated that the order was hand-delivered to Artur Pawlowski, and that they also identified that no arrest was made in this case. So they're very much trying to get away from the May 6th order, the arrest, and just narrow in on this one specific case of him rejecting and kicking AHS away in the very sort of popular viral video where he said, "Get out, get out."
Get out of this property. Immediately get out. Okay. Get out of this property immediately. Out. I don't want to hear anything. Out of this property immediately. I don't want to hear a word. Out. Out. Out of this property immediately until you come back with a warrant. Out. 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 Out.
So they took a quick break as she wrapped up her commentary, and then Sarah Miller had her opportunity to present her evidence. She stipulated that Ms. Jackson failed to acknowledge a number of facts within her submission. They failed to acknowledge that Alberta Health Services got the order ex parte. Alberta Health Services claimed that they got this order in secret because they were afraid that Pastor Artur Pawlowski might provide a risk to them. There's clearly no evidence of that whatsoever. The other thing that Sarah Miller brought up that was very poignant is that Artur Pawlowski essentially had about 2.5 minutes to comply with this order in total. Throughout that short period of time, he stipulated that they should speak to his lawyer and that he needed more time to read the document, and also that he would be happy to meet with him another time, but not during church. They didn't follow up with him. They didn't communicate with him in any way, shape, or form. They simply left on those grounds, didn't attempt to contact him, didn't contact his lawyer. So the implication there being, even if there was contempt, it was purged by his efforts to sort of respond and interact with that and comply and reach further understanding. So the stipulation is that Artur Pawlowski in that time has attempted to comply. In the weeks following that that circumstance, Artur Pawlowski actually instructed his congregants not to interrupt AHS if they decide to investigate or explore or go into the church. And so for the following weeks, the church was open and Alberta Health Services was welcome to enter, and they didn't. So there's further indications that Artur Pawlowski attempted to comply or at least cooperate as best as he could with Alberta Health Services' right, I suppose, to investigate the facility. So effectively, in wrapping up, the counter argument by Sarah Miller is that Artur Pawlowski wasn't given time. 2.5 minutes is not sufficient time to comply with a rather expansive court order, particularly one being submitted to someone in a language that is not their primary language. That was effectively the end, in short, of Sarah Miller's sort of defense. Justice Germain then proceeded to ask a number of questions, and I'm going to jump straight back into court here. Court is adjourned for the time being. We didn't have a final ruling on the matter. A date was scheduled later to discuss that. Justice Germain, who's been assigned to a number of these COVID restriction-related cases, has decided that he wants to view a broader array of evidence before passing a ruling. I think this is an effort to ensure there's some consistency. Certainly for Artur Pawlowski, I'm sure he would have appreciated some sort of closure, but as we know, legal proceedings often take some time. The scope this morning was very narrow, as we mentioned. It only related to the contempt order relating to the interruption of worship of service. Now, this is not the order that Artur Pawlowski was eventually arrested under. Those details, so the details surrounding the arrest of Artur and David Pawlowski, will take place actually today at 2 p.m. Artur and David did not acknowledge that they are in contempt, so they are challenging that assertion from AHS lawyers. John Siddons proceeded with his essentially opening remarks, laying out a bunch of video evidence, trying to stipulate and prove that Artur Pawlowski was indeed aware of the restrictions in place. The counterpoint being that he didn't know exactly that it applied to him. So the video footage being shown by Mr. Siddons was to indicate that Artur did indeed have knowledge of that information. One point of order, Sarah Miller raised an objection that portions of the evidence had been highlighted after she had an opportunity to remove them, and Justice Germain agreed that that was problematic, as it may indicate that Artur Pawlowski was additionally aware of these highlighted segments. So the objection was noted, and some minor amendments were made. But the general proceedings throughout the presentation of Mr. Siddons were that Artur Pawlowski was clearly aware. He also raised an oppositional note to the idea that these orders did not apply in procedural terms to Artur Pawlowski. He insists that they did. We'll see what Sarah Miller has to say in response. One rather concerning thing, Mr. Siddons used a video clip of Pastor Artur Pawlowski preaching about the Bible, and he seemed to use that story from the Bible as he was trying to indicate that that's proof that he knew about the order in the world. I don't know if Mr. Siddons quite understood that that was a Bible story, but we'll leave that aside for now. Mr. Siddons wrapped up his sort of opening remarks. Sarah Miller was then asked if she would like a recess, and she said no, she was ready to go right away and get going with this, but Justice Germain required a quick little break, so we're breaking for 10 minutes, and I'll bring you another update. We've taken a short recess, and Alberta Health Services lawyers will have an opportunity to ask a few questions, but we're going to be wrapping up very, very shortly. Sarah Miller issued a strong defense on behalf of Pastor Artur Pawlowski and his brother David Pawlowski. It is a layered approach, a layered defense, which includes, first and foremost, the argument that the May 6th order does not apply to Pastor Artur Pawlowski or David Pawlowski. And that's because since the time of that order being issued, there's been an amendment that stipulated that it related particularly to those parties related to the events or the gatherings at the Whistle Stop Cafe, which clearly excludes Pastor Art Pawlowski as well as his brother. In addition to this, in the event that the judge were to decide that this order does apply to these gentlemen, there's the further conversations about the notice requirement. So they would need to be informed very sort of proficiently and by a set standard about this order applying to them. And beyond some video clips from social media and a couple shared posts on Facebook, bordering on hearsay, there's not a clear indicator that Pastor Artur Pawlowski had necessary notice of this. A legal term is willful blindness. So the Alberta Health Services basically are suggesting that Artur Pawlowski definitely knew about all this, and that he's attempting to appeal to a willful blindness argument. That is, he knew about this, but he decided to plead anyways, or decided to proceed anyways. Now that's clearly not the case, and the evidence for that argument has been pretty lackluster at best. Finally, in the case of David Pawlowski, the order was only ever presented to him and effectively dropped at his feet in a plastic bag, which by the account of Sarah Miller does not constitute sufficient notice. So that was sort of where we left things off. The defense was very strong. There was some discussion of case law, and at that point we adjourned for our break. So again, likely to be our final update. For more, go to saveartur.com and continue to hear more on this story.
I want to thank you so much for your support. I want to thank you for every dollar, for every donation you have sent to the Rebel News, for the lawyers, that I can stay out of jail. Thank you, thank you, thank you. May God bless you for your heart. You're part of this movement. You're part of this defense. Without you, we would not be able to do what we have accomplished so far. Thank you very much, and may God bless you.